Alrighty, guys. Well, thanks for joining me. This is your host, ID Jester. It's craft time, so we're going to be making some new counters here for Target for today. So I thought I would show you guys how I do things. And so we talked about this in the war room. Tony actually sent me a link to this stuff. What is it called? It's a good question. This stuff is called chipboard 8.5 by 11 sheets. You can find the link on our Facebook group. So, yeah, thanks Tony for sending that information. Oh, speaking of Tony, yeah, this is actually a little bit thinner than the board I'm used to doing. So, but it looks good. We're going to try it out. We're definitely going to try it out here and see. So I made some new counters at work today because I knew this was coming tonight. So I wanted to see how well we could do. So all I did was make some graphics, put them on full label sheets, which as you can see I've like already cut out. But you just Avery full label sheets. Just buy you a box of those, 50 of them. I don't know, it costs about $10 or whatever. And then what you're going to need is a good X-Acto knife. And then you're going to need a nice cutting mat. Big size cutting mat. You can do all kinds of crafts on top of it. Make sure you get one of these. And then you're just going to cut out your image. Because this way, you know, I can save a lot of space on this. I won't have to use up a full board, right? So let's try this out. I've never used this stuff. So Tony swears by it. So if this fails, then we'll have no one to blame but Tony. How's OG doing? Good to see you, man. Good to see you. So it's craft time. We're going to be making some counters here. Wow. Oh, look at that. If I cut it off, that was the little piece that was there. Oh, that's funny. So you're just going to take the back sheet off like this. All right. Let's line it up somewhere. We'll line it up here. That's fine. All right, we're going to try this out. So make sure you got a decent knife, something that fits your hand really well. And I've got a couple of these, and I use a couple, but I always go back to this one because this one feels the best. The other thing you want to do is make sure you got yourself a nice, clean, fresh blade, right? Go to the hardware store, buy you a X-Acto knife blade. I'm going to replace that one because I probably used that one for a little while. All right, get yourself a new blade or one that's not dull. You can buy that like 100 of these at the hardware store for like, I don't know, $6.99 or something. And make sure, boys and girls, when you do this, you're very careful. That's just sharp. We don't want anybody to hurt themselves while they do this now. All right, I'm going to lock that in real tight. This has been on there nice and solid. You could use some spray to make it glossy or matte finish on these. But I don't think I'm going to do that. Then what you're going to do is, I've been cutting counters for like 20 years. So I am like the master at being able to cut a straight line, right? If you can't cut a straight line, then you're in trouble. But if you can cut a straight line, you should be good to go. I've probably made thousands, maybe even hundreds of thousands of counters in my time. All right, so there we go. That's cut out. Can you guys see okay? All right, first thing you want to do is you want to cut the outside of your counters like that. And the first time you score it, right, go real slow and score it real nice. You don't have to put a lot of pressure on it. And the next time you go through it, there'll be like a groove, so it should just follow it along. And what you want to do is just make sure, look at that. Oh, yeah. I was a little afraid when Tony said, oh, you can't cut these with a knife. Well, he doesn't know that I can cut anything with my X-Acto knife. Me and my X-Acto knife, we go back years together. Literally, this thing has been around probably for 10 years with me. All right, so now we've cut out around the area. So now what we're going to do is we're going to cut them into manageable parts. So you can either cut along this edge here, this edge, or you can cut down columns, and you have to just think which way is going to be easier or best for you. So, being left-handed, I am actually, you know what, let's cut out this counter first. Then we'll decide after that. All right, so there's another pro tip for you guys out there, right? So when you make your counter images, always give 1.5 border edge. So 1.5 border edge is the perfect thickness for your X-Acto knife as it cuts through there. You'll have a line to cut down, but you're not going to have a lot of extra. If the line is too thin, you might be cutting into your image, right? So use 1.5 for your border thickness for your images. And then you'll see, so you see this nice line we have there, right? So all we're going to do is cut down this line. Okay, now you notice on the extra, there is going to be just, really can't see much, but it's barely any black on it, if I can get it to focus. You see, there's just a tiny, tiny little bit of black on it, right? And then we look at our image, or our counter, right? You don't see like a big black border around it or anything, so it keeps your image pretty clear. If you want to have a black border around your counters, then obviously what you want to do is make your border around your image a little bit thicker. If you want a little bit less to show up, make it maybe 1.0. All right, so now get our little counter clipper. We're going to try this because Tony said you can even clip the corners. Oh, look at that. We can clip the corners pretty decently too. Look at that. In fact, I could probably even go up. This is a 2.5 millimeter. You can't tell, but I wrote that on there, 2.5 millimeter. Could maybe even go up to like a 3 millimeter. Do I want to go up to a 3 millimeter? On these big counters like that? So I got 2mm, 2.5, and then 3. I normally use 2.5 for just about everything, but these counters are a lot bigger. These are 1.5-inch counters, so I'm going to go ahead and use our 3-inch and take a little bit more off the edge so they actually round real nice. Oh yeah, look at that. That looks professional right there. What do you think of that, huh? All right, let's get the rest of these cut out. Again, the first time you kind of want to go a little slow, and you're just going to score into your backing board just a little bit, so that way the next couple times you go through it, it'll stay in that groove. It's kind of like a snow skier, right? The snow skiers, when you watch the Olympics, they always follow the guy in front of them because that guy's making his little path. So you're doing the same thing. You want to scar it so the next time you cut it, it stays in that same little path. Okay. Most important thing is holding this side down, because the last thing you want to do is be cutting it and then having this turn, right? If this turns while you're just basically what you're doing here is you're taking your elbow and you're pulling it back to yourself. And you can see if you do that just 1,000 times, it's always going to have the same line. So you want to keep this from freaking moving. This is the most important thing, is keeping this from turning. And the smaller number of counters you have on this, the easier it will try to turn. Hey, Dad versus Son, how you doing, buddy? Good to see you. So these images are up on our Facebook group. So I posted the images. If you play Target for today and you would like a copy of them, feel free to download them, print them out yourself, and use them. Because let's face it, the counters that come in the base game are not very helpful. They all look exactly alike. All right, so let's try our 3.0 here. Nice. Look at that, huh? What do you think? What do you guys think? Does that look good? Looks pretty good to me. So thanks to Tony for suggesting this cork board. I used to use something out of, what's it called? Not Joann Fabrics. Is it Joann Fabrics? They used to carry a poster board that I use, but they don't have it anymore, so I don't use it. So I've been looking for a nice replacement. So this does a pretty good job. So all right. Now you'll see a little bit of a difference when we go to the 1-inch counters as opposed to the 1.5-inch counters. Where's my knife? Here we go. So when you're cutting, here's a pro tip. I've been doing this for 20 years. Trust me, I've done thousands and thousands and thousands of counters. You want to keep your wrist straight, and all you're doing with your arm is you're just pulling it straight back every time, straight back every time, every time, every time. Just do the same thing. And when you do it like 1,000 times, then you'll have the muscle memory and you'll be able to cut a straight line like nobody's business, to be honest. I've cut thousands of baseball cards out. I've cut thousands of counters out. I've made thousands and thousands of counters. I used to have every ASL counter. So my this is, a little bit when I was younger and I didn't have much to do, right? What I would do is I decided, you know what? I don't like the small maps for ASL. So I printed them all as big maps, 10 inch. So they were 10 inches tall as opposed to the 8 inches or whatever. So that way I made the counters bigger. So I actually had made thousands of counters for ASL to fit my new map boards. There we go. Now I wasn't sure if I was going to like the 1.5 or the 1 inch counters, so I'm going to make them both, and then when I go to play the game, I'll figure out which one looks better on the map. But there's our counters. Oh, you guys can't see that. Here's our counters. Didn't take very long to make, and now I've got these nice looking counters. All right, so if you're just joining us, we'll go through the steps again. This time we've already printed out our smaller counters, 1 inch counters, on our Avery full label sheets. We're just going to take the backing off. Like that. And we're just going to put it down. Make sure you don't do this just after you print it, because otherwise you'll smear all of everything. Again, you can print out the all the or you can spray it to make it all glossy if that's your thing. You definitely want to go slower. The smaller the counter, the slower you should go. Because the finer the detail you have to be, right? So what I like doing is cutting around the outside of all of them. I'm boxing them out, I guess is the best way. All right, so there we go. So I left enough room here. I can just take off this other stuff, so that way I can actually make a few more counters off of this board. The board's not too expensive, so I wouldn't worry about that, but there you go. All right. All right, so literally in like 30 minutes, we're going to have 1 inch and 1.5 inch counters ready to go for the game. that I can use now. Here's another pro tip for you if you're going to make your own counters. Don't try to keep things square, right? So you're not pulling this way. This is not comfortable, right? When you pull back, you want to come in at like an angle, almost like this angle right here, like almost, I would say between these two angles. That's the way I do it, right? You don't want to try and come straight down because you're going to be turning your wrist the closer you get to yourself. It's going to put a lot of pressure on your wrist. What you want to do is just find a nice angle and just use that angle every time, right there, right like that. So that's why you'll see that I'm not cutting them straight up and down. I'm cutting them at a, whatever this angle might be, 30% angle. All right. And just to give you guys an idea of the difference. So one of these, MGT package arrived today. Pacific War is huge, he says. So believe it or not, one of these counters is 1 inch and the other counter is 1.5 inch. And you can see, even though it's like, 1 inch or 1.5 inch, you can see how big a difference it is. It is, people don't realize how much a big difference that is, right? Like people say, oh, your counters aren't 1 inch counters. They're only 5/8 an inch. And people say, oh, big deal. 5/8 an inch is almost the same size. Well, you can see, even the little bit of difference between them, there is a huge difference in the counters. All right, where are we at? Let's cut this off here. It's craft time with ID Gister. Thanks for joining us, everybody. I do appreciate it. Hopefully, we can share some of our knowledge with you, and we can cuss out Peter for getting his package so quickly from GMT, and tell him how we not very nice, and how we are going to have to sit here and wait another month, and even though he's got his package and he's going to be able to use it and play it, but man, he said it's huge. He said it's huge. That'll be interesting to see. All right, so we're on the last cut, so this one's going to have a tendency to try and turn. So we got to just try to go a little bit slower. You can see my hand shaking here because I'm like holding it down as tight as I can because I don't want it to turn, because you'll be going on the same angle, and if this turns, you're going to cut right into it. So here we go. Let's put our 2.5 inch or 2.5 millimeter bend in our counters. Boom, 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 boom. You don't have to necessarily round them, right? Because you're cutting them, so you're not going to have all those little nibs and knobs. If you buy a game, you're going to have all these nibs and knobs. But because you're cutting everything hopefully square, you won't have to worry about those nibs and knobs, and you can just leave it square if you wanted to leave it square, which is totally understandable. Yeah, this stuff works pretty decently. I think the stuff that I used to cut from Jo-Ann Fabrics, the poster board, was a little bit thicker. It made it a little harder to work with. This is a little thinner, but you know, it seems to do a pretty good job so far. So thanks to Tony for suggesting I use this. So I've been looking for a good replacement. So there you go. There's our counters. Let's take a look at them here. All the counters are rounded, nice size. So there you go. I guess the last thing I was going to do, I got 1.5 and 1 inch counters now. Like I said, I'm not sure which one is going to work better. These 1.5 inches might be a little bit too big for that little board, but we'll see next time we play. We'll try them and see. Then the last thing I have is this, my little admin board. And the question is this any thicker than the admin board I have already? Yeah, probably. All right, so in this case, I want to probably square this up on the sheet. So what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to cut this first. And the wife is about ready to call me for dinner any minute here. She's going to be going, dinner. And I'm going to go, damn. Can't you wait a minute? So we talked about the border of your counters, right? We talked about the border of your counters. You're going to notice, like I said, after you've done this a long time like I have, you're going to be able to draw a straight line pretty good. But I put in extra wide black border around this. And you can see, even though I did that, I was able to like cut right down the black border line. There's no extra black on any of that. So now the question is, we're going to try to kind of center this on the board. You know what? It's not going to matter now that I think about it. Probably shouldn't have done what I just did now that I think about it. I was thinking of just leaving it on the board, having that little extra around it, but you know what I'm going to do is probably, you know what? Maybe I will do that. So let's see how well we can do this without having to measure or anything crazy. That look pretty good? It looks pretty good to me. I could cut that extra off, but you know what? I kind of like it with the little border around it. It gives you some extra room. So again, if you guys are on our Facebook group, I've got both the images on our Facebook group. You can go ahead and download them and print them out and make yourself a set. And if you do make yourself a set, post your final images on the Facebook group. We'd love to see them. And again, you could spray this with some clear gloss. It'll keep it nice and glossy. Or you can even do like a matte finish so it's not glossy, but it would be protected. Because this will eventually, you know, if you're moving counters around, it'll wear out. If you want to keep it for a long time. Oh, that looks pretty good. I like that. And we got our little other counters. 1.5 inch. Again, if you're going to do bigger counters, you want to get a bigger 3 millimeter. If you're going to do smaller counters, 2 millimeter. If you're going to do kind of medium, I always use 2.5 for just about everything. Just about everything. But when I got real big like this, I'm going to use the bigger one. So there you go. Looks pretty good. We can frame it and put it up on the wall now. All right, so that's a little craft time. So you guys will see this next time we run our target for today, which I might get up tonight. Maybe. We'll see. I like how this turned out. This is what I was thinking. I was just going to leave that little board around it. And I kind of like that. In fact, if I was to take like a black Sharpie or something, maybe some black paint or something. Anyways, Facebook group, got these images. If you want to download them, feel free. If you do download them and print them out and cut them up, leave us a picture and let us know. Everyone, have a great night. Hopefully see you later. Peter, thanks for coming out. Dad versus Son, check out his wonderful channel. OG, check out his great channel. Tony's Board Life, check out his great channel. And hopefully this will give you at least some inspiration, even if you don't play Target for today. Maybe there's a game out there you do want to make some counters for. So maybe there is something that, you can still use this process for your own things. All right, guys. Everyone have a good evening. We'll talk to you guys soon. Until then, take care.